Hi, morning, everyone. We have to wait till 10 a.m. to start, so bear with us for another minute and a half, and then we'll get going. Okay, I'll make that 10 a.m., everyone, so we'll get started. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Cambridgeshire County Council's Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Henry Batchelor, and I'm the chair of the committee. We're going to run through some housekeeping first, and then we'll move on to the main item of business we have today. So I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the council's website. The council supports the principle of transparency and encourages filming, recording and taking photographs at its meetings that are open to the public. Members are advised that this meeting may therefore be filmed, recorded or photographed. Please can I ask all members and those members in the public gallery to turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate while the meeting is taking place. There is no fire alarm scheduled for today, so if it does sound, then please leave by the nearest marked fire exit and assemble at the rear of the building at the far end of the car park. Toilets are available on the ground floor and refreshments are available outside of the venue. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the agenda proper with item number 1, apologies for absence. Dan, where are you?
Apologies received from Councillor Gough, Chair.
Thank you very much. And on to item number 2, declarations of interest. Do any committee members have any interest to declare at this stage? No, I can't see any. Obviously, if anyone becomes aware of any as the meeting goes on, do just indicate. Agenda item number 3 are the minutes from the previous meeting, which was held on the 28th of June. Do any members have any issues with those minutes, or can we agree them as a correct record? Councillor Bradnam. Mike, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've been looking at a number of sets of minutes and I'm trying to remember if this is one of the ones where I did give an apology, but it hasn't been noted, or if I was actually there. I can't.
No, you have. Your apology has been noted.
Good, lovely.
Okay. That aside, are members content for me to sign these as a correct record? I don't see any dissent, so we'll take that as read. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the one item we have on our agenda today, which begins on page 9 of our agenda packs, and that is an application for Gamlingay Village Primary School. And the planning officer we have joining us in the room is Dallas Owen, who's going to introduce the report. But it's worth also noting, members, that we also have support on this from Dr. John Finney, who's the Highways Development Manager, and Jordan Hill, who is the Environmental Health Officer. And they're both, I hope, joining us online should we need them. So just to make you aware of that. But with that, I'll hand over to Dallas to introduce the report for us. Dallas.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Okay. So please note that on the first page of the report where it states the recommendation, this should read paragraph 12.1 and not 11.1. The proposal before you is a Regulation 3 application for the installation of a 201.6 square metre temporary mobile building to be used as a preschool in association with Gamlingay Village Primary School for a temporary period until 31st of August 2028. The new modular building would contain 2 classrooms, toilets and storerooms, covered play deck, access ramp and stairs. This decision is being brought before the Planning Committee because household responses have been received that raise issues for discussion around highways and parking, noise and lighting concerns. Paragraph 95 of the National Planning Policy Framework states, it is important that a sufficient choice of school places is available to meet the needs of existing and new communities. With the recent closure of a preschool in Gamlingay, it has been demonstrated within paragraphs 9.2 to 9.5 of the report that there is an immediate shortfall of preschool provision that needs to be accommodated. Paragraph 108 of the NPPF states maximum parking standards for residential and non-residential development should only be set where there is a clear and compelling justification that they are necessary for managing the local road network or for optimising the density of development in city and town centres or other locations that are well served by public transport. Paragraph 111 of the NPPF states development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. Traffic and transport matters are discussed within paragraphs 9.6 to 9.10 of the report. As the local highway authority as a relevant statutory consultee has not raised any objections to the proposal on the grounds of unacceptable impact on highway safety or any residual cumulative impacts on the road, it is considered that the proposed development should not be prevented or refused on highways grounds in accordance with paragraph 111 of the NPPF. Residential amenity, including lighting and noise, are discussed within paragraphs 9.11 to 9.13 of the report. And again, there's no statutory objections to the proposed development. Although, in addition to the draft condition 4 restricting the hours for the construction works, there are draft conditions 7 and 8 requiring details and specifications to be submitted and agreed prior to installation of the external lighting and air conditioning unit to ensure that the impact on neighbouring residents are fully considered, mitigated and protected. The comments of Gamlingay Parish Council and neighbours are noted. However, there have not been any statutory objections to the proposal. These consultee comments can be found in section 6 of the committee report. There are no policy conflicts with the proposed temporary mobile building. Sorry, I'm trying to get my, not going. Here you will see Gamlingay and the star roughly in the position over where the school is and the proposed site in relation to Trumpington Park, Cambridge and Comberton areas. This shows the school site. It says Village College, but it's now Gamlingay Community Primary School. And this here is where the proposed site is. You'll see a hatched area in light green. That's a conservation area, which is on the opposite side of Station Road, and the stars are listed buildings. So the nearest ones are there, which are considered in the report anyway. Just an aerial photo. There's a small mound here, which serves no purpose and will be removed to facilitate the positioning of the mobile classroom. Here's the vehicular access into the school site, and here's a pedestrian access into the school site. Sorry for the complication of this. It's the only way that I could do it. So it showed the overlays for the planning applications, but it does show other ones on the site. So I'll just go over it with the cursor. So it includes the vehicular access, which needs to be included to show how access can be into the site when the construction or the installation of the mobile classroom goes ahead, but it won't actually be used for the day-to-day operations. This is the northern boundary, down the eastern boundary, southern boundary of the site, up the western boundary and onto the vehicular access again. You'll see that within the red line site, it does show the pedestrian access as well. It's a bit more simpler without all the other red lines on the site plan for you. This shows a bit more detail with the positioning of the mobile classroom. So this is the access ramp. This is the raised play deck with a canopy over it and the 2 sets of stairs to go into the outdoor play area. This area here shows the parents and drop-off, pick-up and waiting area. So they'd access the school site from the pedestrian route here and walk and go in through that gate there and wait for their children to either enter or exit the preschool. This shows the fenced area for the aircon unit, which is on the southern elevation, and the aircon will provide cooling and heating for the proposed building. And over each of the doors, so the one on the exit in the 2 classrooms to the raised play deck, there'd be lighting there and one over the front door. This is just shows the elevations. So you'll see the little blue circles. Those are the proposed lighting. And this is a view looking down Station Road, looking eastwards. This is the pedestrian access into the school site. This is also looking eastwards. You can see the gate a bit more for the pedestrian access. And that's looking through the fencing. So that's existing school buildings, existing cycle, covered cycle areas. And that's where the mound that's referred to at the beginning of the report, very shallow, provides no purpose and is to be removed. And this is where the proposed mobile building is to be sited. This is looking east down Station Road, but it's also at the junction with Church Lane, and this is the vehicular access into the school site. Oh. Why is it not working? In conclusion, on the basis that there are no statutory objections to the proposal and taken into account all the material planning considerations, the balanced recommendation in the report is for approval. I'm happy to try and answer any questions members may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dallas. That's very concise introduction for members. We do have some public speakers who are going to give us their views on this, but before we do, I'll offer members an opportunity to ask any questions of clarity of the planning officer, please. Councillor Connor and then Bradley.
Yeah, I don't know if this is quite the right place to ask it, but certainly I'll go ahead. The 20-mile-an-hour speed limit through there, it's villagers obviously want that extended, and I feel that is absolutely imperative. So my thoughts are, I know you've got John Finney looking to be on screen anytime. So I just wondered if we can just ask him his thoughts on it. And if his thoughts are good, I think that would be an excellent idea to do that. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we save that for the debate, but obviously
well, it's just if officers think it's a good idea first, then we can bring it into the debate. If
Okay, well, we can ask briefly officers what their views on the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit extension would be.
At paragraph 9.22 of the report, it does discuss the 20-mile speed limit, and whilst they're outside the planning remit, and whilst the extension of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit along Station Road was not referenced in the County Council Highways consultation response, it could be done within their remit if it was considered appropriate to do so. And the monitoring and management of parking on the public highways but falls under other legislation anyway.
So you're quite happy to do that if in the debate we ask John Finney if he's able to do that as a highway officer, we can put that in as a condition, can't we?
We can't do it as a condition because it's outside of the red line area, but it's something that they could perhaps do under their own legislation anyway, if it was considered necessary to do so.
Okay, that's super. We'll wait to the debate then. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think we can't condition it as part of this process, but we can possibly get an undertaking from highways to do it independently from this process. I think is what the answer was. Councillor Brennan.
That's fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's actually the same question I was going to ask, so thank you.
Okay. If there are no more questions or clarification, we'll move to our public speakers who have joined us in the room today. Firstly, I believe we have representatives of the Parish Council, Councillor Samantha Martin and Councillor Wendy Boyne. Yeah, if you'd like to both come forward and take a chair in front of the microphones there. So you should see the button at the bottom of the mic switches it on and off. You'll see there's a traffic light in front of you. So we've allowed 5 minutes for each section of public speaking. So you have 5 minutes to address the committee. When your time's running out, the light will go yellow, and when it's completed, it will turn red. So fairly straightforward, I hope. But yeah, please, if you switch your mic on, and then 5 minutes whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I am Samantha Martin, Chair of Gamlingay Parish Council, and joining me as Vice Chair, Wendy Boyne, who is also Chair of our Planning Committee. I think it's important to highlight that we support and fully recognise the need for more preschool provision in the village of Gamlingay. However, in relation to this planning application, and as outlined in our formal response, we have significant concerns on the impact that further intensification on the village primary school site will have, both on the immediate vicinity surrounding the school, as well as for the rest of the village. Traffic road problems have already increased at 8:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day during term time, with parking on both sides of the narrow street outside the school, only allowing one-directional traffic to pass. This affects not only Station Road and Church Lane, but also the surrounding equally narrow streets such as Stocks Lane, Chapel Fields, Blythe Way and Charnock's Close. Your maps earlier probably didn't quite give those justice. The school is also sited near to a busy industrial estate on Station Road, which has large HGVs delivering and moving goods at these times. The key material planning considerations detailed in our response to this application include local resident amenity being affected by the siting. Access to the site on the plans is not clear, and one of the primary routes will be through the front vehicular gate, which means that preschool children and their parents will be arriving and walking via the same access point as the main school staff will be using to park. The pedestrian access referenced earlier isn't currently regularly used, and in the plans appears to be restricted by 1.8 metre fence to the eastern boundary to the school field. The lack of on-site parking for staff for the preschool will further pressurise the external environment of the school, leaving even less space for parental drop-off and pick-up. The planning report does not acknowledge that the site also houses Gamlingay Community Gym and an SEN unit, which is another Terrapin unit erected in 2021, and it hasn't included their parking requirements within the transport assessment. The application does not recognise the additional stress the preschool will have on local roads at lunchtimes, due to the session times being 9 till 12 and 12 till 3, which means there will be further congestion with collections and drop-offs at that time. And lastly, the impact of all of the above on the surrounding road network and ours and residents' significant concerns for highway safety, with the increased numbers of parents and children travelling by car to from the school. As referred to in our submission, the transport assessment submitted is flawed, as it relies on children's responses on entry to school and how they travelled on one particular day. It therefore doesn't acknowledge or properly respond to any of these issues. As I said at the start, we support the need for more preschool provision for the children of Gamlingay Parish, and in particular for a long-term, suitable permanent building. However, the current proposal on this site does not offer any physical mitigation measures, such as additional on-site parking spaces, to reduce the significant highway safety issues identified, alleviate the blockage of the highway, and improve traffic flow through the main routes of the village. The proposal will increase antisocial behaviour in relation to parking, and therefore increase the risk of serious conflict and of potential accidents in the vicinity of the school. We therefore strongly urge you to consider appropriate physical mitigation measures to address this application's impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very clear and well within time. So thank you. If you wouldn't mind staying seated for a minute, there may be some questions of clarity from committee members. Committee members, do we have any questions of clarity for the reps from the Parish Council? Councillors Gardner and then Bradnam.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for your, it was very interesting. Can you just tell me, you said appropriate. Can you tell me what mitigation measures you would like to see with regard to the traffic that you mentioned earlier for Station Road? Are you looking for additional parking within the school, or what sort of mitigation measures are you looking for, double yellow lines or whatever?
We're open to a range of measures. I think in particular, the parking issues are the most prevalent because there is a lack of the transport assessment doesn't acknowledge or cater for the increase in staff parking. It recognises there's also already a deficit. There will be a further deficit with the preschool, and it doesn't acknowledge the other units that are on that site as well, with the gym and the other SEN unit. So I think some additional on-site parking spaces would help to alleviate what's on the road, but also we'd be open to discussions about what else can be done to improve highway safety and access to the school, thinking about pavements, thinking about the routes in which young people get there. When we've previously had a lollipop person assessment, we were told we didn't meet the criteria and that as a parish council, we'd have to fund it ourselves. So we'd be open to a number of different measures that would both look at kind of physical mitigation measures, but also thinking about safety and access to the site.
Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you. Thank you both for your very succinct presentation. Is it your view that there's room on site for more parking if it were to be decided? And have you spoken to the school about whether they'd be prepared to give up some of the site for parking if that was deemed necessary?
So we are meeting regularly with the school and with county council officers and our councillor Sebastian. I think it's up to, they need to determine whether there is space. I think there could well be space, but at the moment it hasn't been allowed for, or if there isn't space, there isn't currently any consideration of what other measures could be done. The school is obviously doing a lot in terms of encouraging parental behaviour about how they travel to school, but there aren't any other physical measures that need to be done. And we're concerned about, safety for young people.
Because it's really useful to hear from you the local knowledge about the fact that there's a gym and an SEN unit on site as well, because that, as far as I'm aware, was not mentioned. And the calculation of the number of car parking spaces required was talking about staff, wasn't it? Right, okay, we'll have to think about that in terms of the debate. The other thing was that if parking were to be, and this is not part of the plan, so we may not be able to do anything about it, but is it your view that there would be a safe way of travelling through the site if more car parking were provided on site?
I don't think I'm necessarily qualified to make that assumption, but I think, there are ways and means that site could be made to work, but there is only one vehicle access to it. So, they'd need to be considerate about how parents and drop-off works around that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, if there are no further questions of clarity for the parish councillors, just leaves me to say thank you very much for taking the time to come in. And yeah, we will move on to our next public speaker now, who is Aidan van der Weyer, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant. Probably worth for the minutes noting that Councillor Bradnam and I are colleagues of Councillor van der Weyer, because he's a district councillor on South Cambs District Council, but I don't think that precludes either of us in any way from taking part in this, so probably worth noting that for the minutes. So yeah, Mr. van der Weyer, same rules as before, 5 minutes to address the committee. There's a traffic light system in front of you to help with timings, and at the end of which, if you wouldn't mind staying seated in case there are any questions. Thank you.
Certainly. Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for this opportunity to present this application for a new mobile classroom block at Gamlingay Village Primary School. And as the chair said, I'm speaking as the agent for the applicant. There's a clear and well-established need for more preschool places in Gamlingay. There's currently inadequate provision, and this need has become particularly urgent more recently with the closure of one of the settings that what was in place. So at the moment, people are having to find places outside the village. So Yeah, that there is an urgency to a need to establish this new provision that the applicant has agreed a location for with the Cam Academy Trust and the primary school. In response to some of the comments on the initial proposal, the applicant we've changed the position of the mobile classroom block so that the impact on neighbours across the road is significantly reduced. So there's now no the openings of the building are not looking across the road, but looking sideways. Which I think has hopefully addressed that how the building relates to the neighbouring neighbours. Also, we've had some very productive discussions with the College Office of the county on how to take opportunities to improve biodiversity. This is obviously just a moment grass with no particular biodiversity interest, but we can there will be opportunities to establish some ecology, and we're obviously working with that through the condition on those details. As has already been discussed, the primary concern is around parking and traffic. These are very understandable concerns. We have carried out the transport study that demonstrates that this development alone will add a very small amount of traffic and not have an impact on parking and the wider network. In terms of parking for the site, since the initial transport statement was done, we've reviewed the policy situation, and we now believe that there is actually a surplus of parking on the site in relation to policy. And so it would be difficult from policy point of view, part of this application to seek support for more parking. Obviously, the concerns that have been raised are part of a sort of wider issue around parking and traffic in relation to the school, and the applicant, along with the school and other parts of the county council, will continue to work on this and improve this. I mean, many of you might be aware that there are proposals for civil parking enforcement, which I think could help in this case, as in some of the other schools. And the idea of 20-mile-an-hour speed limit around in the school area, I think, is something that does need to be explored. Whether that's appropriate in the context of a relatively small application like this is something that you will want to consider. The access. I apologize if it wasn't clear that the intended access for the children coming in, coming to this new building is via the pedestrian gate, and then which is very close to the building. That's why it's been cited there. It would certainly be hoped that would people, especially these smaller children, use that would not be using the vehicular access, but be using this gate. I think that would possibly also help establish the pedestrian access as the principal access for the school more broadly. So I'm very happy to answer any further questions you might have from the point of view of the applicant. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that. So that's the view of the agent for the applicant. Members, do you have any questions of clarification on any of the points raised? Councillor Brednam.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. van der Veer. Can I ask, does the traffic assessment, does it take account of the fact of not only the staff at the school, but also the gym and the SEN unit?
Yes. So the gym, when we looked at that, the timings of people coming using the gym were sufficiently different for it not to be needed to be included in the transport assessment, and I believe that the SEN unit, I mean, relatively small, but is included in the overall numbers that were used in the for the transport assessment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any final questions? Councillor Smith.
I'm not sure if this is sort of the right place to ask, but as the agent for the applicant, Has there been any consultation with the parish council? Because obviously they've raised a lot of concerns on behalf of their residents. And it doesn't, everybody seems to agree, yes, there's a need for, but it does seem like with mitigation measures and with a bit more maybe discussion, there could have been a bit more sort of, I don't know about agreement, if that's the right word, and I don't think I'll look over, but it does seem like a bit of more discussion. What mitigation measures can be put in to help alleviate the concerns?
Yes, there has been discussion between the applicant and the parish council now and then previously. I think with this particular application, because of the scale of it, the sorts of extensive physical mitigation measures I think would be disproportionate. But as I said, it's something that the applicant for the sort of the part of the county council's very aware of, and keen to keep those discussions going about how that can be managed. Hopefully we'll be able to get some input from Dr. Fing on this, but because it is quite a complex environment, the highway in the surroundings of the school, while there could be some mitigation measures that they do need to be carefully considered, and it will be quite complex and potentially quite extensive if you are going to solve it. I think, civil parking enforcement is one that should be coming, and I would hope would help with that.
Okay, Councillor Connor.
Yeah, thank you. You'd be happy to explore the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit down Station Road, wouldn't you? You'd be able to.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes. So the applicant is just the applicant for this mobile building and with this area. So I mean the other major sort of stakeholders in this would be the school itself, and the parish council and the highways county council. So absolutely. I mean I think that seems like from our point of view seems excitingly desirable. Yeah,
and obviously I'm going to, as I intimated before, I'm going to explore that with highways when we come into debate. So you're obviously prepared to do it. So that's all I want to know. Thanks. So
just about the proportionality of it in relation to this application, I think that's the sort of the
okay. But yeah. Well, we'll go into that with Mr. Finney. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's probably the end of the questions of clarification for yourself. So thank you very much again for taking the time to come and speak to us this morning. And members, we have one more public speaker. We have Mr. Owen Clark, I believe, is with us. Yeah, Mr. Clark, if you'd like to come forward and take a seat. So yeah, same procedure as with the other speakers. So 5 minutes to address the committee. The big button at the bottom of the microphone switches it on and off. And you do have a traffic light system in front of you to help you with the timings. So yeah, please, whenever you're ready, do go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Sorry, sir, is it possible to pull the mic towards you a bit so everyone can hear?
Can you hear me now?
Perfect, thank you.
Right, okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. My wife and I live at 17 Station Road, which is directly opposite and the closest existing building to that proposed. We object to this proposal on several grounds, but I have two main points which I would like to highlight today. Firstly, the issue of fire safety. Secondly, the issue of noise. Relating to the issue of fire safety, as part of the consultation, Mr. Phil Thacker at Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service gave the following clear advice. Mobile classrooms should be sited a minimum of 6 meters away from any existing buildings and other temporary structures on the site, as well as the site boundary. In the revised location, the building is just 50 centimeters from the boundary fence along the total width of the building. This is in complete disregard to the advice from Mr. Thacker. In the event of a fire, this wall of the building would be inaccessible to the fire brigade, even via the highway, due to the high hedge on the road side of the boundary fence. On 21st of July 23, Mr. Aidan van der Weyer, the agent for the applicant, responded to Mr. Thacker's advice. In his letter, Mr. van der Weyer stated that As this classroom is intended to be used by preschool children aged 3 and 4, it is important that the front entrance to the building be as close as possible to the entrance to the school grounds on Station Road. Any other location would create an unacceptably long pedestrian route from the school entrance. The location chosen for the temporary mobile classroom is considered to strike an acceptable balance between the needs of the preschool children who will be using it and the small risk that a fire in the building could spread to the low hedge along the boundary of the site. I vehemently disagree with Mr. van der Weij's analysis. This is not a good compromise on 2 counts. I'm not concerned about the hedge catching fire. I'm very concerned that a fire in the building could spread to our home due to the prevailing wind direction. Second point is section 3.2 of the transport statement document also makes it abundantly clear that these 3 and 4-year-old children are expected to walk at least 800 meters to get to preschool. The argument then that they cannot walk a few tens of meters more is frankly ridiculous. Agenda item 4, sections 919 and 920 within the agenda document pack are dismissive of the Fire and Rescue Service advice as a non-statutory consultee, but instead reflect the inaccurate views of the applicant's agent. This is totally unacceptable. You are being presented with biased information. Moving on to the issue of noise. On our ground floor living room window is directly facing the proposed building and now only a mere 14 meters away from it. We use this room to relax throughout the day. The prevailing background sound level is also low. Consequently, any increase in noise would be disproportionately felt. Just small changes to the location of the building could greatly improve the situation. As a chartered communications engineer, I am aware that just moving the building 6 meters further away would halve the noise level in our living room. But don't take my word for it. Get a noise impact assessment carried out at the applicant's expense. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this matter. I've highlighted just 2 major concerns, but it's clear that the plans are full of inconsistencies and inaccuracies. For more details on these, please refer to my previous letters. In short, the proposed plans should not be approved since they willfully ignore the honest advice of the fire service and do not properly address our reasonable concerns about noise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Owen. That was very clear. If you wouldn't mind staying seated for a minute in case there are questions from the committee for yourself. Members, do I have any questions or clarification for Mr. Owen? We'll go councillors Bradnam and then Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. I'm looking at the Google.
Mr. Clark.
Apologies, Mr.
Sorry,
Clark.
Mr. Clark.
Owen's the first name. My fault. Apologies.
Sorry, Mr. Clark, I do apologise. So I'm looking at the Google imagery of the properties opposite the location. Is your house the house that is end on to the road or the house that's set slightly further back and facing the road?
Our house is end on to the road.
Okay, I can see which one you mean. And I can see that you have a window in that
Yes.
wall closest to the road.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you for coming to raise your comments. It's not exactly sort of to yourself, but it's because of the sort of what you've raised. One, I'm a member of the Fire Authority. I don't know if I need to declare that as an interest, but I don't take any part in any discussions. Sorry? Oh, it's all right. It's noise. I have trouble hearing and there's people out there talking. It's all right.
Yeah, keep on going.
Basically, I don't know if it's possible to ask. I mean, the sighting of the actual mobile seems to be the main issue sort of here. Is it possible to ask the applicant why it's cited where it's, you know, the application is cited where it is and not move it back a little bit? So it's not exactly to you, but because of the issues you've raised.
I'm sure we could ask that.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to take that question, but whilst we have Mr. Clark with us at the moment, if there's any questions directly for Mr. Clark about any of the comments or concerns he's raised, now is a good time to ask.
excuse me, may I just try and address that? Because from my point of view, I think it could be cited differently. I'm not trying to tell Mr. van der Weyer what to do, but from, you know, our proximity to the situation, we can see that there are opportunities to make changes that could allow the building to be put there, but further away. And we are pleased the fact that they've turned it round through 90 degrees so we don't have the windows facing us. But in doing that, it was actually moved closer. And that's our problem.
Thanks. I think also the issue we have as a committee is we're not here to redesign anything. We're here to make a decision about whether this scheme is acceptable or not. So, but no, I'm happy to ask the agent for the applicant that question, if that would help. But whilst we have Mr. Clark here, does anyone have any further questions for our public speaker, Councillor Connor?
Yeah, just to reiterate, you say 14 metres from the hedge or the boundary to your house. Is that correct?
Yes, as it currently is, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Just to reiterate that.
Good, thank you. Members, if there's no further questions for our public speaker, just leaves me to say thank you very much, Mr. Clark, for taking the time to come in and give us your views today. So pretty at this stage, I'm going to invite Mr. van der Weyer back if that's okay with him. So yeah, I think we had a question from Councillor Smith. I don't know if you'd like to reiterate that for clarity.
Basically, why is it cited where it is and could it be moved back?
So two aspects of that. One is potential other sightings across the whole school site. I mean, in the process of selecting the site, we did look at other sites within the school site, none of which were appropriate for a variety of reasons, not least this issue of the sort of the routes from the entrance to the siting having to go through the car park or the other major issue was sort of loss of the playing field space. So this general location was clearly the preferred one and didn't have any of these other drawbacks. Within that location, so among the considerations are one is how the entrance to the building relates to the entrance onto the school site, to the pedestrian entrance, and also the amount of open space and also how that relates to the to the highway. So in the new orientation, the entrance to the building is still fairly close to the entrance to the school site, the school gate, but does maintain a large area for a large enough area for the children to play freely in a contained area. The problem is if you move the building sort of further away, sort of to the south, if you go too far to the south, you just get hit the path, and then if you go sort of move it sort of to the southeast direction, then you're just immediately removing the open space, the potential play area for the children that you couldn't have immediately in immediate proximity to the highway, to the school entrance. Yeah, but as I said, we felt this was a reasonable compromise that didn't have an impact on residential amenity because there are no openings on the side that faces the highway.
So I think we've heard the justification about the location there. Did anybody want to explore that further? Councillor Bradnam?
It's probably really for the technical advisors, but I just wanted, have the fire service come back with a response relating to the proximity to the hedge?
We do have a section in our reports 9.2, no, 9.19 is a response from the Fire and Rescue Service. I don't think there's been any further correspondence. I'm looking at officers now.
Because the original response would have been on the original location. But now that it's been moved, I just wondered whether
I think it's just been spun. I don't think it's been moved.
It's been turned around. So that means that one side of the building is now closer to the hedge than it was. And I just wondered, have the fire service reviewed it since it's been spun?
Okay, well, let's ask.
They were reconsulted and we didn't get any further correspondence from them.
Okay. Councillor Connor?
Yeah, so in 6.10, Camden Fire and Rescue Service, they've got no objections. So, and my feelings are, and Councillor Smith will tell me differently, if there was any danger in their opinion, they would have had an objection surely.
I would hope so, but they've been reconsulted apparently.
Yeah.
there was nothing come
And
back,
there's
so-
there's nothing coming back. So
Yeah, so I think we have to take
one,
what we have in the report as the fire services official response.
absolutely, we've got to determine this, what's in front of us, really, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, Mr. Van der Weij, thank you very much for coming back again. That's appreciated. Members, those are all the public speakers we have. So we're now going to move into the debate part of proceedings. So so members, now is the time to ask any further questions of officers. Remember, we have 2 technical officers joining us online as well. And if any members have come to a view on this, it'd be good to hear those views now. So I'm going to start with Councillor Connor and then I'll come to Councillor Sanders.
Okay, as I've reiterated several times, I'd like to bring up with the county highways the suggestion that a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit through Station Road would be acceptable to them, and would they consider doing it as part of this application? Or so I'm waiting for I'd like to
So,
Mr. Finney's
I'm
point of
hoping
view on that. Thank
we
you.
have Dr. John Finney, who's our highways officer, who's joining us online. John, I'm hoping you're about to pop up on our screen. Dan, do we know if he's joined? Do we know? Okay, we're just going to check. John isn't immediately visible to us, so well, whilst we're going on there, does anyone have any comments or questions that aren't reliant on technical officers at this stage? Councillor Sanderson, did yours require officer input?
It may do, yes. So I think we're all concerned about the mitigation and how we can achieve that. And I know one of the comments was that there's doesn't seem to be any suggestion of using the section 106 system to bring this about. South Cambridgeshire is not a sill charging authority, I understand. So I just wonder what the scope is to do that. Will that be part of the negotiation with the developers? Do we know when that will come about?
It's a fair question about 106 contributions. I'm looking at officers in the room.
So if you, paragraph 9.21 of the report, because the comments of the parish council also asked about the 106 financial contributions in respect of policy GAM 8 of their Gamlingay neighbourhood plan, which was for improving footpath and cycleway provision through new developments. However, that policy states that proposals for the development of new or improved walking, cycling and horse riding routes will be supported as appropriate to their scale, nature and location. And new residential and business units should mitigate their impact on the local road network. However, and it goes on further, and the full paragraph can be read in 9.21. But as this is Regulation 3 application for education provision, it does not fall within the types of development that would trigger the 106. So therefore, we can't include any conditions to that effect.
So essentially, is the development not large enough to warrant 106? Is that the?
Yeah, it's the nature. Thank you.
Okay, so the type of application it is means it wouldn't benefit from any 106 something.
Yeah, it doesn't trigger those, what it states in that GAM 8 policy within the Gamlingay neighbourhood plan.
I think that's clear.
Sorry,
do you want to come back, Councillor?
Yeah. So, so you're saying, Dallas, then that wouldn't. So what is in the Gamlingay neighbourhood plan couldn't be achieved through this development because of the nature of it. Because it's an education application.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
As I say, that's our interpretation of that policy.
Good. Have we made any progress on sourcing John? Dan? Okay. Well, it seems we're without our highways technical support at the moment. So whilst we try and source him, and I think we're going to carry on trying to find John. Do members wish to make any other points that aren't potentially highways related at this stage? And we will, unless they can be covered by planning officers rather than technical officers. Councillor Bradnam?
I think the agent pointed out that whilst he would welcome 20 miles per hour, he was questioning whether it was proportionate for an application of this size. But obviously it doesn't, the request as Councillor Connor and I are both making for a 20 mile per hour zone to be considered. Actually, as far as I'm aware, these are not costly to install. They require simply a couple of roundels on the road and some discs on the side of the road and some signage. So my feeling is that if it's at all possible, and bear in mind, this will, yes, it will benefit the school itself and the gym and the SEN unit and all the people who use that part of Station Road. So my feeling is I think we should do everything in our power to try and encourage either the agent or the County Highways to actually look favourably upon a 20 mile per hour zone for this part to protect the area.
Yeah, I think that's understood. I mean, I'll go to ask Dallas this. So just to confirm, as part of the process today, it's not within the planning process's remit to essentially condition that there needs to be a 20 mile an hour limit, but it can be, we can try and convince highways that it would be, and the local parish council, etc., to go through the process of actually implementing one. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we use an informative?
I'm certain we can use an
We could use
informative.
informative, yes. If you want
Yeah,
one on there.
I don't think that would be looked on
Obviously,
poorly.
just check with legal, but
Yeah, okay. Perhaps Paul, our legal officer, might give us a legal view on that.
Yes, from what I'm hearing, my understanding is that there's no, from my understanding of what I've heard, there is no sort of requirement arising out of this development which necessitates a 20 mile an hour speed limit in itself, and it isn't within the planning judgment that that's a requirement. And in those circumstances, a condition would not be right. But there's nothing to stop an informative being used to suggest that that's a good idea for the area.
Okay, Councillor Connor?
I was just going to say we'd need to come up with some wording now, wouldn't we?
We can come up with plenty of wording, I think.
Sure. I mean, I don't think think there'd be any objection to adding that as an informative to this application, should it be approved. I mean, members, does anyone vehemently disagree with adding that as an informative?
And I'd be happy for the wording to be delegated to the chair and the planning officer
Officers,
to
yeah.
come up with together. If you're
An
if members are happy with that.
extremely, we
An extremely strong recommendation.
Yeah.
Don't we? I think it's absolutely imperative, really.
Okay.
I mean, as Councillor Bradman quite rightfully says, it's going to benefit the whole village as a whole. I mean, as she says, I think £2,000 probably, and half of that is obviously administration costs and that sort of thing. So it's not above the realm of possibility for the agent to come up and pay for that, is it? Goodness.
Well, I mean, we haven't heard any negative comments around the implementation of the 20 mile per hour scheme, but yeah, as mentioned, we can't include it in as a condition, but obviously we can put a strongly worded informative in. And from what I'm hearing, I don't think any members have any objections to that. I can't see any shaking of heads. So, I mean, is it? Can we all agree then that would be included should permission be granted for this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fine. So I'm see officers jotting stuff down now. So hopefully that's been noted. I don't think we've made any progress on getting John online, but hopefully we have covered the 20 mile an hour speed limit issue. But members, do we wish to raise any or give any other views? I've got three speakers: Councillor Smith, Bradnam, and then Gardner.
Thank you. I'm aware I'm going to sound like a scratch record, but the mitigation measures, it does sound like there could have been more of a discussion with the agent the applicant and residents and the school, but that's obviously not for my place to say. But I believe I heard the agent say that discussions about mitigation measures are ongoing or were ongoing. So I was wondering if that could be sort of brought into it, so as, you know, if it goes ahead, then discussions are not stopped here, they are still talking to each other to see what could happen. I had a slight nod of the head there, I believe, so I'm all for communication. So,
Sure.
you know, the more people talk, I think the better. And I do, you know, and that's not a dig or anything, but so I would like to see that brought in, that discussions are kept ongoing.
I mean, we can add as many informatives, I suppose, as
Yeah, but
we
you've
like.
got his head
Obviously,
for that one.
yeah.
So,
I mean,
you
I
know.
don't think. Well, I can see that we're not getting much
You know,
pushback on that.
residents just keep talking to each other.
Yeah, and yes, I don't think there'd be any negatives in asking for that dialogue to continue. I mean, whether that warrants needing an official informative in the planning application or not, should it be approved, is up for us to decide.
That's down to you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just raising what I think, and I just
It's down to us as a committee, I'd say, to make that
even
decision.
mitigation for the siting, I don't know, but
Sure, okay, well, we can come back to that before we do make a decision. Sorry, who's next? Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. I've just been ruminating on Mr. Clark's request about the location of the building and noise. And I think Mr. Clark is an engineer, and I can confirm his understanding aligns with mine, and that is that sound and noise is measured on a logarithmic scale. So actually quite small distances can make quite big effects on the impact on a sensitive receptor. So, but what I was noticing is that it's the end of the building now, which faces his lounge window, not the windows, and that actually probably the noise that he's more likely to hear of children happily playing in the open area would happen in that open area, whichever way round the building was and whichever way the building was relative to the hedge. But from practical point of view, I do wonder whether they could actually shift the building just slightly further away from the hedge to the southeast. I know that would impact on the waiting area for parents, but it wouldn't very much impact on the play area. It would actually make it easier for the landscape contractor who has to cut that hedge. It would make it easier to manage the hedge, and it would provide a small fire gap. So I'm just wondering whether there's a little bit of compromise that might be managed there with moving the building just slightly further to the southeast and slightly away from the hedge. I'm just wondering if it's possible to do that.
I mean, I think it's difficult for us to
Yeah, I know,
potentially
as
redesign
we're
an
looking at it.
application that's been put forward to us. I mean, I'll ask officers, but my view is we have to make a decision on this application rather than, you know, condition moving a building slightly. Councillor Connor.
Yeah, we just can't go down that route. I think Councillor Bradman's has got an excellent point, but we need to focus on what's in front of us. We would be open to anything if we don't. I mean, we just do. I mean,
absolutely, and obviously all the representations we've had from our consultees are based on what we have in front of us.
We could. I mean, there is a way we could do. We could defer it. I mean, you know, we could refuse it. But if we're going to, you know, but we do need to make a decision on what's in front of us, and that is that, you know, that's how I see things.
I quite accept that.
Absolutely. Okay, Councillor Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I don't know whether I also need to declare an interest as being a member of the Fire Authority, but as Councillor Smith has already done it, I will do the same. The other point was with regard to, I don't know whether a travel plan has to be produced for this particular application. If it does, I was wondering whether the parish council could be involved in that
I'm going to ask officers, Dallas.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be produced as part of this application. I'm
Not
not
all.
certain that the school itself has got a travel plan, but there are discussions around it. Aidan's nodding his head there. And obviously the travel plan would manage how the school is accessed, whether the pedestrian route or the vehicular routes to access the site. So I think they're under discussions at the moment, but they don't need to provide one for this application, but obviously it would be all encompassing for the site.
I mean, of course, Councillor Smith did make a suggestion of adding an informative earlier on about continuing dialogue between the applicant and the local community, including the parish council and the school. So if the committee did want to include that informative, maybe it could be extended somewhat to say, including the production of a travel plan in conjunction with.
I think that would be very
Okay.
beneficial,
Useful.
Chair, because we've today learned that there's various other SEN and the gym on the site as well. So I do think it would be useful to have a travel plan produced for the whole site, so including the new preschool. So I do think that would be very useful. And if the parish council could be involved in that, I think that would benefit the whole community.
Yep, I don't see that being an issue. So, well, let's test it. So members, if we were to include that as an informative, should permission be approved? So essentially we're trying to encourage the applicants to continue engagement with the local community, including the school and parish council, and specifically around the production of said travel plan.
Absolutely.
Or, whatever the official version of that wording would be as written up by officers. Are committee members content with including that? Is anyone not? No, okay. So
Right.
hoping officers have noted that. I'm sure the official wording can be drawn up in conjunction with myself. Would that be acceptable? Okay. Councillor Connor, please.
Yeah, okay. So I think we can move on a little bit quickly here. My view. The school's definitely needed. I mean, the traffic outside the school, in my experience that at most schools in England have a traffic problem with dropping off and picking up. I think that's a given. So I think the lighting plan is excellent. I can't really see the lights are going to be off when the school is non-operational, so that's fine for me. Like we said earlier, there's no statutory consultee objections. So I think officers have got this absolutely right. We do need it. The parish council obviously agree with that we need it. And I think if we can incorporate the 20 mile an hour and the traffic survey in and get more input, or hopefully get more input from the parish council, because they've got extremely good good comments to make. I can't see anything really wrong with this. So I'll wait for what anybody else has got to say. But if you're looking for a proposer, I would propose that we go with officer recommendation with those informatives put in. Thanks.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Members, so we have the offer of a proposal there. Councillor Bradnam?
Second that.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal. Before I move to the vote, does anyone wish to make any further comments or equally put a contrary view to that? Can't see anyone indicating. So we have a proposal put forward by Councillor Connor to accept the officer's recommendation, which is section 12 on page 30. That with the two informatives that we discussed around the 20 mile per hour limit and the encouragement of continued communication between the applicant and the local community.
And travel plan.
Including the production of the travel plan, which will form part of the same informative. Officers, is that all clear from your side? Have we missed anything?
Mainly as well, it is to be recognised that it's only for 5 years, a temporary building for 5 years as well. So we've got to look at that. It's not going to be, it's not going to be for the next 50 or 60 years, is it? So
no,
we've got to look at it in the context. It's only 5 years. Thank you.
Okay, good. And just for completeness, I'm going to ask our legal officer if he is content with those two informatives.
Yeah, no problems from my point of view.
Good. So we have a proposal then, members, by Councillor Connor, seconded by Councillor Bradnam. Can I ask for a show of hands, please? All those in favour of that proposal? I'm going to ask Dan to confirm that's unanimous. Yeah, okay, so that is unanimous. I suppose for completeness, does anyone want to vote against or abstain? No, so that application is approved with the 2 informatives. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to officers and all our public speakers who came to address the committee today.
Excellent.
That is appreciated. With that, members, that is the only application we had, but we do have one more item on the agenda, which is a summary of decisions made under delegated powers, which is on page 35. I'm not proposing to run through this, but if many members have any questions, we can put those to officers.
No.
Oh,
No.
sorry, Deborah, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to let members know that there is one application that's missing from that, which was for the erection of a replacement mobile classroom building for a temporary period. So that is, it's at Wheatfields Primary School in St Ives. The mobile classroom is already there. It was just to allow a further period of time until August 2028. So apologies if that was missed off the delegated report.
Thank you for the update, Deborah. So members, with that additional item on that added to that item, are members content that we move on? Good. Okay, well, everyone, that concludes the meeting. It's 11:04, so thank you very much for everyone's time. And thank you again to our public speakers for taking the time to come in and address us this morning. Thank you, everyone.
That's it. You can get. That's the best deal they could get. Yeah. Me. Might be very clever. You might be clever. But I don't think I'm not very good. Can't be, can it? I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go because we've got a new puppy now. Thank you for your always. Well, he does. He's a seasoned performer.